Before you say La ilaha illallah, pause for a moment. These are not ordinary words. Ibn Arabi said that this declaration is a doorway, and most people stand at the door their whole lives without ever entering. We repeat the Shahada with our tongues, but few of us understand the weight it carries, the idols it destroys, the fears it dissolves, and the reality it unveils inside the heart. You have said these words many times, but have you ever stopped to ask, what do they truly mean for my soul? What changes inside me when I say them consciously? What hidden truth am I missing when I rush through them? In this video, you will discover the deeper meaning of the Shahada, the meaning that transforms your relationship with the world, with people, and with Allah Himself. These 7 lessons are not information. They are mirrors. They will show you what you have been carrying, what you must release, and what your heart is capable of witnessing. If you understand what Ibn Arabi teaches here, you will never say La ilaha illallah the same way again. Most people say La ilaha illallah with their tongues, but their hearts are still attached to things that quietly rule them. Ibn Arabi taught that the Shahada is not only spoken, it is lived. Before you can affirm that there is no God except Allah, you must identify every small god that has taken a place inside your heart without you realizing it. An idol is not always a statue. Sometimes it is fear. Sometimes it is a person whose opinion controls you. Sometimes it is money, status, a desire, or the need to be accepted. Anything that distracts you from Allah, anything that shapes your decisions more than His guidance, becomes an object of worship without you noticing. La ilaha illallah begins with recognizing these hidden idols. It forces you to ask difficult questions. What do I fear losing the most? What do I rely on more than Allah? Whose approval do I chase? What do I think will solve my problems besides Him? This first lesson is a deep purification. It demands honesty. It requires uprooting attachments that weaken your connection to Allah. You cannot enter the reality of the Shahada until you clear the heart of everything competing with Him. Saying the words is easy, but removing the inner idols is the true beginning of the journey. You can say La ilaha illallah all your life, but if the heart does not witness what the tongue is saying, then the words never transform you. Ibn Arabi emphasized that there is a difference between repeating a truth and actually seeing it. The Shahada is not a phrase you recite for reward. It is a reality your heart must wake up to. Most people grow up hearing the words. They learn to say them in prayer. They whisper them in difficulty, and they teach them to their children. But the heart often stays untouched. It hears the words, but it does not see the meaning. And without seeing, there is no witnessing. Ibn Arabi said that the tongue speaks the Shahada, but the heart must testify to it. Without that testimony, the words remain only sound. Witnessing means something profound. It means recognizing with absolute clarity that nothing in this world has independent power. People may appear strong, but their strength comes from Allah. Circumstances may look threatening, but they move only by His permission. Your fears feel heavy, but they are controlled by the one who created them. When the heart witnesses, it understands that every force is a shadow of Allah's will. This shift is not intellectual, it is spiritual. It is a moment when the heart quietly realizes that everything it fears, chases, or depends on is nothing compared to the one who controls all existence. At that moment, the Shahada becomes alive inside you. When the heart witnesses Allah, something changes in your life. You stop reacting to things with panic because you no longer see them as independent threats. You stop begging for validation from people because you understand that only Allah's acceptance matters. You stop obsessing over outcomes because you know they unfold exactly as He decrees. A witnessed Shahada makes the heart steady, not because life becomes easy, but because you finally know who is in control. You no longer feel alone in your struggles. You no longer collapse under uncertainties. Witnessing connects you to the source of strength, guidance, and protection. This lesson teaches a powerful truth. Reciting the Shahada without witnessing. It is like describing fire without feeling its warmth. You may know the words, but you have not tasted the reality. And Ibn Arabi warned that many people die with the Shahada on their tongues, but not in their hearts. Your goal is not to repeat the words. Your goal is to let them shape your perception of the world. Let them influence what you fear, what you desire, and what you rely on. Let them rearrange your priorities, your choices, and your relationships. The moment your heart testifies that there is no God except Allah, your entire life becomes aligned. Your emotions, decisions, hopes, and fears all start to move in one direction. You begin to trust more, surrender more, and live with deeper clarity. When the heart witnesses, the Shahada becomes a lived reality, not a memorized phrase. And once that happens, everything inside you begins to transform. Ibn Arabi taught that the heart is like a container. It cannot hold two realities at the same time. If it is filled with fears, desires, pride, or worldly attachments, there is no space left for the truth of La Ilaha Illallah to enter. Before the Shahada can take root inside you, something far more difficult must happen. You must empty yourself. Most people try to increase faith by adding more words, more rituals, more practices. But Ibn Arabi explained that the journey to Allah begins not with addition, but with subtraction. You do not fill a cup until you first pour out what contaminates it. The heart works the same way. If it is full of noise, ego, and illusions, the light of divine certainty cannot settle within it. Emptying yourself is not a physical act. It is an inner surrender. It means releasing the illusions that control you, letting go of the identity you built around praise or criticism, loosening your grip on expectations about how your life should unfold, freeing yourself from the weight of wanting everything your way. Every attachment you release becomes an opening through which Allah's guidance can enter. Ibn Arabi said that the heart becomes a mirror when it is empty. Only a clear mirror can reflect divine light. But when the mirror is fogged by ego and desires, it reflects nothing. This is why many people say La ilaha illallah, but still feel restless, anxious, or disconnected. The words cannot settle in a heart that is already crowded. To empty yourself, you must confront the illusions you have carried for years. Perhaps you believed your strength comes from your abilities. Perhaps you thought security comes from money or status. Maybe you held on tightly to relationships, expecting people to give you the peace only Allah can provide. These illusions must be released. They do not disappear in a single moment, but the awareness of them begins the purification. Emptying the heart also means letting go of the roles you play. You are not defined by what others expect of you. You are not the fears that haunt you. You are not your past mistakes or your future anxieties. You are a servant of Allah, and everything else is a temporary garment you wear in this world. When you remove these layers, the heart becomes free to recognize the reality behind all existence. Then comes the most beautiful part. Once you empty yourself, Allah fills you, not with the world, but with clarity, peace, and certainty. The more space you create for Him, the more presence you feel. You begin to notice wisdom in events that once confused you. You begin to sense protection in moments that once frightened you. You begin to trust the unseen, even when the seen feels overwhelming. La ilaha illallah is not about adding new beliefs. It is about uncovering the truth that was always there. The heart already knows Allah, but it is buried under layers of noise. When you remove the noise, the truth shines on its own. This is why Ibn Arabi said, that the first step to the Shahada is emptiness. Not emptiness of life, but emptiness of illusions. When you let go of everything that is not Him, only He remains. And that is the real meaning of La ilaha illallah. Nothing exists with true power except Allah. When a person truly understands La ilaha illallah, something profound happens inside them. People lose the power they once had over their emotions, decisions, and self-worth. Ibn Arabi taught that as long as you depend on people for validation, approval, love, or security, you have not yet tasted the reality of the Shahada. Because if Allah is the only true source of strength and control, then no human being can define your value or shape your destiny. Many people live their lives under the weight of what others think. They alter their behavior to gain approval. They silence their truth to avoid criticism. They stay in fear of rejection, judgment, or disappointment. These emotional chains are subtle forms of worship. Ibn Arabi said that anything that makes you compromise your inner truth becomes a master over you, and only Allah deserves that position. When you internalize La ilaha illallah, you begin to recognize that people are part of the story, but they are not the writers of your story. They can speak, but they cannot decree. They can dislike you, but they cannot prevent what Allah has written for you. They can reject you, but they cannot remove what was meant to reach your heart. Their opinions lose their ability to disturb your inner stability. This is not arrogance or rebellion, it is freedom. You stop chasing acceptance because you realize that the one who created the hearts of people is the one who guides them toward you when the time is right. You stop fearing criticism because you understand that Allah sees your intentions more clearly than the world sees your actions. When this truth settles inside you, you begin to move with confidence, not because you trust yourself, but because you trust the one guiding you. Ibn Arabi explained that people become like reflections in a mirror, visible, present, but without real power. You deal with them kindly, you treat them with respect, you fulfill their rights, but you no longer give them the authority to control your emotions. Their approval becomes something you appreciate, not something you depend on. This shift changes your relationships completely. You no longer cling to people out of fear of losing them. You love them, but your heart is anchored in Allah, not in them. You no longer become destroyed when someone walks away, because you know that Allah writes every separation with wisdom. You no longer compromise your values to fit in, because you understand that true dignity comes from standing where Allah wants you to stand. La ilaha illallah frees you from the opinions, expectations, and judgments of the world. It places your heart above the reach of emotional manipulation. It gives you the courage to be authentic, sincere, and honest. You stop living through masks and start living with clarity. When you realize that only Allah decides your rizq, only Allah decides your honor, and only Allah decides your path, you walk through life with a calm strength. You no longer feel small in front of people. You feel supported by the Creator of people. This is the spiritual liberation hidden inside the Shahada. The freedom does not mean isolation. It means transformation. You can finally love without fear, give without expectation, and live without pretending, because your heart is no longer enslaved to creation. It is connected to the Creator. And once the heart reaches this level, no human disappointment can break you, and no human praise can elevate you beyond truth. You become balanced, centered, and inwardly unshakable. This is the emotional strength that Ibn Arabi considered one of the greatest fruits of truly saying La ilaha illallah. The words La ilaha illallah are simple. A child can say them, a new believer can learn them in minutes, and a dying person can whisper them with their final breath. But Ibn Arabi taught that although the phrase is short, its reality is so vast that a human being can spend their entire life trying to understand it and still only touch the edge of its meaning. Most people think of the Shahada as a single declaration, something you say once to enter Islam or repeat occasionally in worship. But the truth is that La ilaha illallah is not an event. It is a lifelong unfolding. It grows with you. It deepens with your experiences. It expands with your struggles. Every test, every moment of gratitude, every disappointment, and every prayer reveals a new layer of its meaning. There will be days when living the Shahada feels easy. You trust Allah effortlessly. You feel peaceful, centered, and connected. But there will also be days when your heart is heavy, when doubts whisper, when fear rises, when your faith feels thin. These moments do not mean you have failed. They mean you are journeying. Ibn Arabi explained that the heart moves in waves, and each wave brings you closer to understanding the reality that there is no God except Allah. The Shahada teaches you patience because you learn that faith is not a straight line. It teaches you humility because you realize that relying on your own strength is impossible. It teaches you surrender because you begin to accept that Allah guides you through both ease and difficulty. Every stage of life gives you an opportunity to relearn the meaning of these words. For example, when Allah withholds something you desperately want, you learn that there is no provider except Him. When someone betrays you, you learn that there is no protector except Him. When you achieve something you never imagined, you learn that there is no giver except Him. When you fall into sin and then repent, you learn that there is no forgiver except Him. Each experience pulls you deeper into the reality of the Shahada. Ibn Arabi wrote that the journey of La ilaha illallah begins with knowledge, then moves to understanding, then becomes practice, then devotion, then becomes a state of the heart, and finally becomes a way of seeing the world. At that final level, your entire life transforms. You begin to recognize Allah's wisdom in everything. You see His mercy in events that once confused you. You see His timing in moments that once frustrated you. You see His protection in situations that once frightened you. This journey never ends, because the meanings of the Shahada are infinite. The more you purify your heart, the deeper you see, the more you trust, the more you understand. The more you surrender, the more Allah reveals. It is a relationship that renews itself constantly. This is why Ibn Arabi said that the Shahada is not a door you walk through once, but a path you walk for the rest of your life. Every year of your life, every trial you face, every moment you grow, brings you closer to realizing the full weight of these words. You do not master La ilaha illallah in a single moment. You grow into it, you live it, you breathe it, and with every step, Allah draws you closer to Him. The deeper you go, the more peaceful, purposeful, and anchored you become. This is the beauty of the Shahada. Simple in words, infinite in meaning. Fear, anxiety, and restlessness are among the greatest struggles of the human heart. They enter quietly, settle deeply, and often refuse to leave no matter how much a person tries to fight them. Ibn Arabi taught that the root of these emotions is not weakness, nor a lack of intelligence, nor a failure of discipline. The root is simple. The heart forgets who truly controls everything. When the heart forgets, it becomes afraid. When it remembers, it becomes calm. La ilaha illallah is not just a statement of faith. It is the cure for these unseen wounds. These words realign your inner world. They pull you back from the illusions that cause fear. They remind you that everything you worry about is already known, measured, and controlled by Allah. Nothing is random. Nothing is out of His sight. Nothing can reach you unless He allows it. And nothing meant for you can ever escape you. People try to calm their fears through planning, control, logic, distraction, or denial. But fear is not cured by forcing the mind. It is cured by anchoring the heart. When the heart understands that only Allah has power, the illusions that create fear begin to dissolve. Ibn Arabi wrote that the heart becomes restless when it believes in many powers, but becomes peaceful when it recognizes that there is only one. Think about your fears: fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of poverty, fear of the future, fear of illness, fear of people, fear of not being enough. Each of these fears grows when you see the world as a place full of forces acting against you. But the moment you remember La ilaha illallah, a quiet shift happens inside. You realize that every fear you carry is a reflection of something you believe has power outside of Allah. And once you see that truth, fear loses its foundation. The fear of the future softens when you understand that the future is already written by the one who loves you. The fear of people disappears when you know that they can only speak or act by Allah's permission. The fear of loss becomes lighter when you believe that everything taken from you is replaced with something better. The fear of failure weakens when you trust that Allah never burdens your path with something that will break you. Anxiety often comes from trying to control what is not in your hands. You try to control outcomes, timelines, other people's behavior, your own image, and every detail of your life. But control is a heavy burden because it was never meant to be carried by a human being. When you recite La ilaha illallah with awareness, you give the control back to the one who already holds it. You begin to breathe again because you are no longer fighting the entire universe with your limited strength. Ibn Arabi explained that anxiety is a whisper from the heart saying, "I am relying on myself too much," and peace is a whisper saying, "I am relying on Allah." The difference is profound. A heart that relies on itself shakes whenever life changes. A heart that relies on people collapses whenever people disappoint. A heart that relies on outcomes panics whenever plans shift. But a heart that relies on Allah stays steady even in the middle of storms. This doesn't mean you will never feel fear or worry again. Even prophets felt fear. Even saints felt uncertainty. But the difference is that they did not live inside their fear. They returned to Allah quickly. They allowed the remembrance of His power to wash over their hearts until fear shrank back to its proper size. They knew that fear is temporary, but Allah is permanent. When you internalize the words La ilaha illallah, you begin to see life differently. You no longer interpret every difficulty as a threat. You see it as guidance. You no longer view uncertainty as danger. You see it as a space where Allah will act. You no longer see challenges as personal attacks. You see them as opportunities to witness His wisdom and kindness. Many people search for peace in external things, success, relationships, comfort, or wealth. But peace does not live in the world, it lives in the heart. The heart finds peace only when it is connected to the one who created it. When Allah becomes your refuge, fear becomes lighter. When Allah becomes your protector, anxiety becomes softer. When Allah becomes your anchor, restlessness begins to fade. The more you deepen your understanding of La ilaha illallah, the more your emotional world becomes balanced. You respond to life with patience instead of panic. You walk through difficulties with dignity instead of despair. You approach the unknown with trust instead of fear. You begin to live with a sense of calm strength, not because life is easy, but because your heart is held by the one who never fails. This is why Ibn Arabi said that the Shahada is the cure of the heart, not because the words are magical, but because the truth behind them is transformative. When you truly believe that there is no God except Allah, you also believe that there is no fear except His mercy, no danger except His decree, and no outcome except His wisdom. and that belief heals you in ways nothing else can. Ibn Arabi taught that the highest level of La ilaha illallah is not spoken by the tongue, nor merely believed by the mind, nor even held with certainty by the heart. The highest level is when these words become the very lens through which you see the entire world. At this stage, La ilaha illallah is no longer something you say, it becomes the reality you live inside. Most people see life as a collection of separate events, a blessing here, a difficulty there, a success today, a loss tomorrow. Their worldview is fragmented, divided between good and bad, joy and grief, hope and fear. But Ibn Arabi said that once the light of the Shahada enters the deepest chamber of your heart, the divisions begin to disappear. You no longer see isolated moments. You begin to see unity behind every movement. You see Allah's presence woven through every detail of your life. This does not mean you stop living as a human being. You still feel happiness and sadness. You still experience success and failure. But something fundamental changes inside you. You no longer see any moment as random or empty. Every event becomes a message. Every encounter becomes a sign. Every delay becomes protection. Every heartbreak becomes purification. Every blessing becomes a reminder. You start to live with spiritual awareness, noticing meanings others overlook. Ibn Arabi explained that when the Shahada becomes a lived reality, you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" Instead, you ask, "What is Allah showing me through this?" This shift is profound. It pulls you out of victimhood and places you into understanding. Life stops feeling like a series of accidents and becomes a divine curriculum designed specifically for your soul. At this level, you begin to see that your entire journey, every mistake, every triumph, every weakness, every strength was written with precision. You stop wishing your past were different because you realize every step was necessary to bring you to where you are now. You stop fearing the future because you trust that Allah's plan is already unfolding in the most perfect way. People may see coincidences, but you begin to see purpose. They see delays, but you see timing. They see separation, but you see mercy. They see hardship, but you see growth. They see loss, but you see cleansing. This is not delusion. This is clarity. The clarity that comes when the heart recognizes that behind the changing world stands an unchanging creator. One of Ibn Arabi's most powerful teachings is that when you reach this stage, you start to witness Allah in everything, not in a literal sense, but through His attributes. When someone shows kindness, you see it as a reflection of Allah's mercy. When someone helps you, you see it as Allah's support. When someone harms you, you see it as Allah's protection redirecting your path. When a door closes, you see it as Allah safeguarding you from what you cannot see. When a door opens, you see it as Allah honoring you with a new opportunity. This way of seeing transforms your relationships. You no longer depend on people emotionally the way you once did. You interact with others sincerely, but you know that they are vessels, not sources. A person may deliver something to you, but the giver is Allah. A person may hurt you, but the one who heals you is Allah. This keeps your heart balanced, neither overly attached nor overly resentful. This spiritual vision also transforms your experience of hardship. You stop feeling abandoned during difficulty. Instead, you feel accompanied. You know that Allah is nearest to you when you are struggling. You begin to sense His closeness in the very moments your outer world feels unstable. What once felt like chaos now feels like a hidden form of care. You realize that Allah does not break you. He breaks the illusions that keep you away from Him. The highest level of La ilaha illallah is when your heart witnesses divine wisdom, even in the places that used to fill you with confusion. You stop seeing life in terms of luck, fate, or chance. You start seeing the signs of Allah guiding, shaping, cleansing, and elevating you. The world becomes a mirror, and everywhere you look, you see traces of the one who created it. This level is not achieved through effort alone. It is a gift. It comes after years of sincerity, reflection, surrender, and purification. The more you remove distractions from your heart, the clearer this vision becomes. The more you let go of control, the more Allah opens your eyes. Ibn Arabi said that when Allah loves a servant, He does not only guide their actions, He transforms the way they see. When you reach this stage, your heart enters a state of deep tranquility. You trust even when you do not understand. You accept even when you cannot see the full picture. You remain patient even when the wait is long. You feel grateful even for the things that once hurt you. You walk through life with dignity, not because everything is perfect, but because you recognize that everything is purposeful. This is the final secret of La Ilaha Illallah. When its truth settles fully within you, you no longer see the world as a place of separation and fear. You see it as a place of signs, all pointing back to the One. You begin to experience the world with a heart awakened, a mind illuminated, and a soul anchored in certainty. This is the level Ibn Arabi considered the completion of the Shahada. The level where Allah becomes the only constant, and everything else becomes a reflection guided by His wisdom. You have now heard what most people spend their entire lives never realizing, that La Ilaha Illallah is not a phrase to memorize, but a truth to become. These words are a mirror, a map, a medicine, and a doorway. They reveal who you are, what you worship, and where your heart stands with Allah. Ibn Arabi taught that the Shahada only transforms you when you stop saying it with your lips and start living it with your heart. And now you understand why. It clears your illusions, frees you from people, heals your fears, and opens your inner eye to the constant presence of Allah in every moment of your life. So before you move on to your next task, pause. Repeat the words slowly, consciously, fully awake. La ilaha illallah. Let them settle. Let them echo inside you. Let them shape the way you think, feel, and walk through the world. If these 7 lessons touch something in your heart, then your journey with these words has already begun. If you want more teachings like this, more reminders that speak directly to your soul, then make sure you subscribe and stay connected. Your support helps this message reach the hearts that need it. Until the next lesson, may your heart never forget the one who created it.